Hello, we are going to receive our distributors from Qatar, and we're going to welcome them to our facilities. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome
Hello.
to Citacos. How are you? Very well.
Thank you.
Very
Hi.
well. This is
How are you?
Karine.
Hello. This is Hira.
Hello. Pergunto se si andou me ver, sisplau.
Did you sleep well?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Very good.
Ok.
Yeah.
Doncs anirem a fer una volta per les instal·lacions.
Okay. So we're going to take you around the facilities, and Xavier will explain you everything about Citacos. Okay?
Okay.
So what I wanted to tell you is about our protocol for hand rearing baby chick. And the protocol that we have designed is a protocol that uses 3 types of formula. A formula for the first few days of life, which is the crop milk, because at this age the chicks have a very high capacity of absorption, and they need to have a very fast growth, and that's very important to have a very healthy chick. After the first 7 days of life, we switch to the neonatal, and when pin feathers begin to emerge, we need to switch to the follow-on hand feeding formula, the high protein, the high energy, depending on the species. Why it is important that the first few days of life we use a crop milk and not this one as people usually do? Because they need to do this very fast growth. And I want to show you this picture that these 2 chicks were fed different formulas. They are the same age, but if you see, it's a very different weight they have, right? This one was fed with the crop milk, but this one was fed with a formula similar to the neonatal, and look at the difference. Yes, this chick will be much stronger, much healthier, because they would have had this very strong growth at the very first few days of life. And this is what they do in nature, and that's why we think it's important to copy exactly what they do in nature, which is what they are adapted to. Yes. With our hand feeding formulas, we always recommend to use the soft tubes, because it's a very clean method to feed the chicks, and it's a controlled method. You know exactly how much formula you're feeding, and you make sure that the bird ate that amount of formula. So we always recommend to use the soft tubes. Depending on the age, you choose one size or the other. I'm going to explain you quickly all the Psittacus range, so you have a wide view about the range, what is all about, okay? And let's start from the beginning. When you have a chick which is just born, we would use the Psittacine crop milks. We have one for granivorous species and another one for more frugivorous species like lories or Eclectus parrots, for example. Yes. Once the chick is a few days old, 7-8 days old, more or less, depending on the species, we would switch to the neonatal hand-feeding formulas. Yes, we have two, again, one for granivorous species, the neonatal hand-feeding, and one for frugivorous species, the frugivorous neonatal hand-feeding. After that, when pin feathers begin to emerge, then we need to switch to the follow-on hand-feeding formula. And then we will have a wide range of formulas depending on the trophic adaptation of the species, the food that this species is adapted in the wild. And we have the high energy plus for species that need a high fat content, the high protein for species that need less fat content. Then we have a parrot hand-feeding, which is for a wider range of species, like more a generic formula. Then we have the lorry for lories, the lorry special hand-feeding, the Eclectus special hand-feeding for Eclectus only, the cockatoo special hand-feeding only for white cockatoos. Black cockatoos need the high energy plus hand-feeding. The mini hand-feeding for cockatiels, budgies, and lovebirds, for example. Then after that, we also have a recovery hand-feeding formula, which is for sick birds, not only chicks, but also adult birds. Then for young birds, we would use the omega. The omega is for young animals until the first year of life, especially medium and large species. It allows them to adapt to the adult formula and to grow, to finalize their growth and their body structure. Yes. After here, we would go to the adults formula, and then again, as Psittacus, we would look at the formula more appropriate for the specific species we have. Then we have the high energy for species that need a high fat content, specific type of fatty acids. The high protein is for species that need a less fat content and different type of fatty acids. And species that have a tendency for obesity, that would be the product for them. Then we have the mini for cockatiels, especially, and other species like rosellas and psittaculas. The lovebirds and species that have a very varied diet in the wild, they even eat some insects. The minor would be the product for them. Then smaller species like the budgies, we have this formula, which is the only one that is not extruded, and that is like a crumbs, and it works pretty well. Then we have the lories. Obviously, we only have an extruded product for lories, which is the Lori Pearls. Is a new product that we added. But the premium product for lories would be the Lori Nectar and the Lori Gel together in two separate feeders. That gives them the choice, and they can regulate the intake of more protein or more sugar depending on the species and depending on the specific bird, if it's a very active bird, if it's reproducing, depending on that. Then we have a lorry diet, which is a diet for lories, but it's more generic diet where you only offer one product, and all these products you can offer them dry or mixed with water. Okay, not the lorry pearls. The lorry pearls have to be fed dry. Okay. And we have two products which are versatile and generic for a wide range of species, which is the parrot maintenance for non-breeding birds and the parrot breather for breeding season. It's for big collections where they have lots of birds, and it's very versatile. But if we have a very rare species, I would suggest to go to the premium diet for that specific species. Okay. For breeding younger birds, like smaller birds like cockatiels or budgies or lovebirds, we suggest adding the egg food when it's breeding season. Yeah. And when there's chicks in the nest, then we suggest adding the microspheres mixed with water and mixed with the egg food, which is very it gives them, it has a consistency that birds love to feed their chicks. Yes. And then I think it's important to remember that birds need grit to have their digestive tract functioning correctly, and the Silex grit is the one for that aim. When it's breeding season, it is good to offer calcium grit, to have it available in a separate feeder for females to be able to regulate their calcium intake and adjust it to the number of eggs they're laying and adjust it. And then we have the sprouting helper, which is a solution that is fantastic for people who is doing sprouting seeds to feed their parrots, and it prevents mold and bacteria from growing into the mix while you're preparing the sprouts. So it's useful for these kind of breeders. And I think that's a very wide vision of the range. Yes? And I hope to see you again very soon. And have a good trip home.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
Gracias.
we'll keep in touch.
Inshallah. Yalla, thank you.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.